Adrian Griffin joins us now to discuss Lithium Australia. Adrian, thanks for your time today.
Thank you very much, Danielle.
So, as it's your first video, my first question has to be, tell us all about Lithium Australia. What is it that sets you guys apart?
Well, Lithium Australia has been in the lithium business for some years, and I guess to that extent we got a head start on most of the competitors. But what we looked at was the materials that were a little more difficult to process and to a large extent being thrown away. So what we wanted to do was add a bit of sustainability to the lithium industry, and to do that we had to invent new processing technology that was capable of capitalising on those opportunities. Now we've done that, and I guess the flagship of our technology base is Sileach. It's a hydrometallurgical process, requires no roasting, but is capable of recovering the lithium from any silicate minerals. On top of that, we recently acquired a company, VSPC, which stands for the Very Small Particle Company. Its mainstay has been the production of cathode powders that go into lithium batteries, of course, into the cathodes of lithium batteries. And that company has produced some of the most advanced cathode materials in the world. That was a great opportunity for us, and it's part of our philosophy of closing the loop. So we can produce lithium chemicals from waste mine materials, the materials that other people don't want. We can take those lithium chemicals and produce cathode powders. We'll leave the manufacture of the batteries to other parties. And at that point, if you look at what happens to the lithium cycle or the battery metal cycle, about 90% of the batteries that are returned today go to landfill. So what we've been doing is developing the technology to recover the metal from those batteries and start the cycle again.
Adrian, could you tell us please a bit more about the recycling of batteries? Seems like a pretty interesting opportunity there.
It's a fantastic opportunity. At the moment, if you look at it on a global basis, I mentioned previously, there's only about 10% of those batteries globally that get back into the production cycle. In Australia, it's even less than that. It was 4% a couple of years ago, decreasing to 3%, and most of our material gets shipped off to South Korea. We've been looking at that situation and come to the conclusion that there's been a lot of time, effort and money spent getting the metals to the stage they're utilised in those batteries. So really a battery for recycling is a pot of gold. And what we want to do is capitalise on the value that other people have already put into those rather than throwing them away. So we're working with a number of universities and other organisations developing the appropriate processing chemistry to digest those batteries and get the metals back into the production cycle.
That's hugely promising on many fronts, Adrian. Good for the environment, good for shareholders. As well as having these wonderful technologies and processes proprietary to your company, you do have a range of projects.
I think the first thing you've got to do is put the projects into perspective and what do they mean to the company and what do they mean to the investor. We've taken a position where we believe we can process waste material from other people's operations, and those operations aren't just lithium operations. There's a lot of lithium minerals contained in deposits such as tin, tantalum, and clay minerals. And under most circumstances, in fact all circumstances at the moment, they get thrown away. So we have the ability to take those waste materials, turn them into lithium chemicals. But if you make a major investment in any lithium province and you're relying on someone else to supply your waste materials and they have a bit of a problem with production, for example, you may be taking waste materials from a tantalum deposit and the tantalum price falls, and as a consequence they don't want to keep the doors open anymore. You've got a problem if you invested a lot of money to process their tailings material. So we've taken positions in most of the major lithium provinces around the world so that if we do a deal to recover lithium from other people's waste materials and there's a supply chain problem with respect to that, we can then go and mine our own deposits. So that's developed a portfolio that on a local basis sees us with I think about 8 or 9 projects in Western Australia, one in Northern Territory, a couple in South Australia, a number of them in Queensland, a very large lithium clay deposit in Mexico. We have some corporate relationships in Canada, and we have a joint venture in Germany. So to a large extent, I see these things as being the insurance policy. The exceptions there are probably the deposits in Mexico and Germany, which are joint venture deposits. So we have direct equity and we're pouring money into those at the moment.
And let's speak more about that project in Germany, Sadersdorf in Saxony. You have just put out your results on the first diamond hole drilled there, with 2 more expected to come back with news at the end of the month.
Sadersdorf is in the Erzgebirge, which is literally the ore mountains, and that was the start of the mining of base metals during the Bronze Age. So there's been mining there for hundreds and hundreds of years. Sadersdorf itself is a mothball tin deposit. Hasn't operated, I think, since the 1950s. There hasn't been a drill hole put into that deposit since about 1990. We've looked at it on the basis that the tin mineralisation, which occurs in narrow veins, is enveloped in a large halo of alteration in a granite, and that alteration is primarily lithium mica. Now, that lithium mica is about 17, maybe 18% of the total rock mass. So if you can recover the tin, the lithium mica is in the tails, and it's very easy then to get that lithium mica out. The drill holes that we've drilled to date indicate that the previous drilling did indicate what was there. It does confirm what the old timers had mined back in the very early days and right up until the 1950s. So indeed the lithium is there. And the important thing is the way we see that deposit at the moment is if we recover the lithium as a tailing to tin operations out of that mine, at present the resource has enough lithium mica in it to operate a full-scale production lithium carbonate plant operating at about 25,000 tonnes per annum, which is pretty standard size, for about 10 years, and that resource is growing. Location is very important too, because it sits right on the doorstep of the European automotive industry, where there are a number of new, let's call them gigafactories. Maybe they're even bigger than the gigafactory, but there are a lot of new battery factories planned for Europe, primarily to feed the automotive industry.
And Adrian, continuing on from that, I imagine that you're in talks for potential offtake agreements. What can you tell us about that?
Well, as it hasn't been announced to the ASX, I can't tell you a lot about that, but we are looking at the appropriate funding package. We've got on the drawing boards at the moment a large-scale pilot plant. We have announced the approximate location of that plant. It'll be in the goldfields of Western Australia. And part of the package to finance that, of course, will include offtake.
And indeed, it would appear that you yourself and the rest of your board are very confident in where you're going. You've recently acquired 4 million performance rights in your own company. Oh
yeah, we have indeed. I'm a great believer in providing all of our employees, and the board included, with the appropriate incentives that align them with shareholders. If everyone gets the same reward for the same sort of work, your shareholders do very well. So that's what that's all about.
And could you tell us, please, what are some of the timelines on all of these activities? What are the next key news flows?
Let's take the Silex large-scale pilot plant first, because that is our most advanced project. We anticipate pushing the button on that, not into production, but giving all the final approvals later this year, and providing we start construction of that plant this year or early next year, we anticipate that we'll see first production out of that in 2020. So that plant will be taking waste material. We've already sourced the material. We have a plant site organised. We've got most of the infrastructure intact for that, including things such as tailings disposal, which will go into an existing tailings dam that's already on the site. So those things have been done. We're negotiating the environmental permits with the relevant departments at the moment, and that plant will produce lithium chemicals from mine waste. So that's the first one. We are currently recommissioning the cathode powder plant, pilot plant in Brisbane. That's under the trade name, of course, VSPC, Very Small Particle Company. We actually have 2 pilot plants there. There's a very small one, and that small one is producing cathode powder as we speak. The larger one will be recommissioned in the next couple of months. We're working on that, redoing all the electrics control systems and whatnot. So that's very close to complete. And we anticipate there'll be fairly large samples of cathode powder coming out for testing by the battery industry before the end of the year. On the recycling front, we're still deciding on what the best process flow sheet is. So I guess with respect to that one, watch this space.
Adrian, a lot going on for Lithium Australia. We do hope that you'll come back and help us keep up to speed on all of those very interesting activities.
I will indeed. Thank you very much, Danielle.